Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. Just wondering where everybody is tuning in from today. So if you want to jump into the Q&A area and let me know where you are tuning in from, that would be awesome. Morning, Tracy. First to respond from Vancouver. Kim from Edmonton. Jay Harrington from Calgary. I am coming to you from Calgary this morning as well. Thankfully, it's warmed up a bit. No more snow. Ontario. Oh, Newfoundland and Labrador. Awesome. Nice to have you on this afternoon, Chris. Morning for me, but afternoon for you guys and out in Ontario as well. Okay, we're just gonna get started in a couple of minutes. Good morning, Nicole from Port Moody, Matt from Vancouver, hello. And Jason, good name, Jason. I'm Jason as well, obviously, from Kelowna, BC. Okay, we'll get started in about a minute. Maybe let me know if you are an accountant, a bookkeeper, tax preparer in the Q&A. Hi, Betty from London, Ontario. Nice to meet you. Hi, Tracy, accountant also. Annalie, I hope I'm saying that right. Bookkeeper and tax preparer. Awesome. Love that you're here. Jay Harrington, same tax preparation and bookkeeping. Awesome. Glad that you're here to explore ProTax with us. Oh, someone from Saskatchewan, my stomping grounds. Awesome. Marnelli. Okay, gonna get started in about 30 seconds. Hi, Kim. Hi, Denise. Hi, Tanya. Trenton, Ontario, I see. Awesome. Okay, we are going to get started. Let me share my screen. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. We're going to be talking about ProTax T2 for experienced users this morning. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thank you for joining. My name is Jason Hasty. I am a CPA CA. I got my CA way back in 2001. So I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And I also got my master's in accounting at the University of Saskatchewan. Welcome to everyone here this morning. I see another Calgarian, Vancouver and Toronto. So awesome that we've got people from across the country, all the way to Newfoundland and Labrador this morning. Okay, so today's webinar is going to run for an hour and 15 minutes. The idea is that the first hour is going to be instruction. Feel free, though, use the Q&A area to ask questions throughout the webinar. We do have some Intuit help and support helping us with questions this morning as well. I will try to answer questions as I see them. And then we'll kind of dedicate maybe the last 15 minutes or so to any additional questions that you might have. Something different this year. Normally handouts were done in advance of the webinars. This year they're being done along with the CPD certifications, and they are both going to be emailed out after the presentation. So please download those for your records. The handouts are great guides to working with ProTax and a lot more comprehensive. And just to note, please limit your questions to today's webinar content. We have a ton to go through, and I want to be able to answer all the questions that are specific to today's content, which is ProTax T2. Today's course is eligible for 1 CPD credit, and again, they are emailed out after the webinar. If you do not get yours, please reach out to Intuit and check and see what's going on, but they should all be emailed out to you. And a disclaimer for this morning, for today's webinar, all information in this webinar is for educational and informational purposes. Please do not consider it legal or tax advice. The webinar contents and presenter are not to be relied upon for tax treatment of items reflected on tax returns. So I'm not sure if any of you were in the webinar that I did yesterday. Today's webinar is very, very similar. It's almost a repeat of yesterday's webinar. So if you're back, awesome, welcome again. If you are just joining us because you couldn't join yesterday, welcome as well. Great to have you here. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to start off with books to tax and work papers. This is Intuit's cloud-based full ecosystem. You can go all the way from your client's QuickBooks online account and their books all the way through to work papers, the year-end prep, and to the tax return preparation and filing. So having one ecosystem, very, very advantageous in your bookkeeping, tax preparation, accounting world. We'll talk about working with ProTax, obviously all of the different items that come with it, the overview, things like importing files, a basic T2, the schedules that are involved in a basic T2, things like tax mapping, some really, really good time-saving things that we're going to be exploring today. Another awesome time-saving feature that's part of ProTax is the autofill my return or autofill your client's return. We are also going to talk about Intuit Sign. It's a feature that is almost a year old now, and great to have those client signatures done electronically directly in the ProTax product. And then we'll talk about ProTax resources. As always, Intuit is very, very, puts a lot of effort into ensuring that you get the help that you need. And that's the beauty of cloud-based products that we're finding these days. The support generally seems to be better and more responsive than the old desktop versions that we used to have. So Intuit has put a lot of resources into giving you the best support with ProTax. So a lot of different ways that you can access that support, and we will be talking about that today too, as well. All right. Okay, so we're going to start with the whole ecosystem, the books to tax ecosystem, as they like to talk about it. The basic overview of books to tax. Where we start is in QuickBooks Online Accountant. So this is something that is absolutely free for you to sign up for if you are a bookkeeper, tax preparer, and accountant. QBOA, as we call it, QuickBooks Online Accountant. You sign up, you access it free. It is your client database, so it gives you your access to all the clients that you are working on, whether those clients are using QuickBooks Online or not. So note that they do not have to be on QuickBooks Online. Same thing with working in ProTax. You do not have to have a client that's on QuickBooks Online to create a tax return and file it in ProTax. As part of the whole ecosystem, we call it the books to tax. So as you can see on the left-hand bar there, in the black area, there's a thing called books to tax. And it involves 3 main components. The first one that you can see that's has the green bar under it is the books review. And this is what you use for your periodic reviews of clients' files. This is more along the lines of the bookkeeping thing, bookkeeping tasks. So like your monthly or your quarterly reviews of your client files. The second tab is work papers, and that is geared towards your year-end preparation for your clients, both their financial statements and tax returns. So all of the different tasks, the adjusting journal entries, all of that you focus on when you are looking at year-end. And then the third tab is income tax. And that is where work papers leads into ProTax. Because it's one ecosystem, you don't have to jump from product to product. You don't have to worry about data files. You don't have to worry about separate imports and exports. It's all in one ecosystem. That's if your clients are using QuickBooks Online. If not, no worries. Again, you can still complete tax returns. You can create brand new tax returns. You can do imports, which we'll talk about, even if your clients aren't using QuickBooks Online. So a little bit more about the work papers tab, and we'll jump into this a little bit later as well. But basically, this is kind of your task management portal when you see year-end tasks. So if you take a look, there's those 4 areas under work papers. There's year-end tasks, documents, review and adjust, and grouping and statements. We'll be going through all those briefly today. Just touching on the first one very briefly. This is your task management when you are doing those year-end tasks. And as a note, work papers is compliant with the new Canadian standard on related services, the CSRS 4200. Know that work papers is it complies with that standard. There have been probably the largest changes in the accounting industry in 35 years. And so that's part of these new standards. Work papers fully complies with that, with section 9200, with the notice to reader compilation engagements, all of that. So just know that it is compliant when you are working in work papers. A brief overview of the income tax tab. Here we are taking a look at the tax mapping area, and I will get to that a little bit later as well. But something that is a huge, huge time saver. If your clients are using QuickBooks Online, in their chart of accounts, you have the ability to map each of those chart of accounts to either a T2, we're going to be talking specifically today about the T2. So you can map the GIFI, or the General Index of Financial Information, directly to your T2. You also have the ability to map it to a T2125. And what that is, for those of you who don't know, that's on the T1, the personal tax return for self-employed individuals. So if you have a client or clients who are sole proprietors, they would be filing a T1, or you'd be filing a T1 for them and adding in the T2125 business statement. So you can map chart of accounts to both the corporations, corporate clients to their T2 for that corporate tax return, or sole proprietors for their T1, T2125. That's a lot of T's to be talking about. All right, anyways, I digress. So this is the mapping screen, and this is what it looks like. We will be jumping into that a little bit further in today's webinar. But for now, let's jump into ProTax T2 and take a look at an overview of the tax program itself. So why ProTax? What are some advantages? Why would you want to use ProTax? Especially if you've been using other tax software or other desktop-based tax software as well. Well, because ProTax is based in the cloud, you never need to install, you don't need to update, you don't need to manage any apps or software or your client's data. When I was doing my articling, I worked at an accounting firm where I was kind of the IT person as well. I was nerdy enough that they kind of labeled me the IT person. And so I was responsible for installing the tax software, updating it, fixing issues with it, uninstalling, reinstalling, restoring, all of that. That has all gone away with ProTax because it's in the cloud. Everything happens behind the scenes, all of the updates, all of the potential bug fixes that come out, any new tax legislation that comes out, all of those updates are handled behind the scenes, which means that you and your firm can focus more of your effort onto preparing those tax returns. So you don't have to have the IT side of things with that. Huge, huge time saving. Really, really important to mention with ProTax, it is the same Intuit tax engine that has powered millions of tax returns. So if you are used to working with Intuit's desktop-based tax software called Profile, it uses the same tax engine that Profile uses. And this tax engine has been around since the 1990s. So it literally has powered millions of tax returns. When you are working with tax software, you want to have something that is reliable and something that you trust. And having a tax engine that has the history is huge. So ProTax uses that same tax engine that has been used for many years. Another huge advantage to using ProTax is that you can quickly toggle between your client's file and the tax return. So kind of talking about that whole books to tax ecosystem, again, going between the client's file and the tax return. Very easy to toggle between both of those. And we will be going through the whole process today. I will be doing a very quick demo of the WorkPapers environment for you as well. And also, gone are the days where tax software is written for PCs and not for Macs. With my company, Tenge2Go, we have a bunch of our bookkeepers work on Macs and our CPAs as well. So no worries with if you are working on a Mac, because ProTax is cloud-based and just operates through your browser. You don't have to worry if you're on PC or Mac. It works the same way. Okay, what's new in ProTax? ProTax is constantly evolving and getting bigger and better. The 4 modules that it comes with now are the T1, the personal tax module, T2, so your corporate tax, T3, your trust returns, and then the forms expert, which includes things like your T4 or T5s. When we jump in, I will show you later, and we'll also talk about it in the resources area. But there is a website, when you click on the what's new within ProTax, that I say it's a good idea to visit like quarterly, semi-annually, even annually at the least, to see what are the newest versions or what's coming out with ProTax, what are the release notes, and very easy to access those right directly in the ProTax software. Here is a link. You can take that down if you'd like to see some more information for yourself. Okay, well, how do you access ProTax? So I talked about QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant. When you have signed up for that and you are on the main screen for QuickBooks Online Accountant, you will see that green QB logo, and then next to it, you will see the word accountant. That means that you are in your company's file. You want to access ProTax through the company's file. That differs from WorkPapers. If you have clients that are on WorkPaper or clients that are on QuickBooks Online, you access their WorkPapers directly through their file. And very easy to do. It's just on the top of the screen. You have a drop down, and that's where you can access all your clients' online QuickBooks Online files. But ProTax itself is accessed directly through the QBOA portal. On the left-hand side there, you can see ProTax. Once you click on that, you can select between the 4 different modules that I mentioned, and it'll take you right to that module. One thing that I like to note, I didn't note this yesterday, but you can see there's a black little icon next to T1 Personal. That is a bookmarked item. So you have the ability to bookmark any items within that tab, not just within ProTax, but within that whole sidebar as well. And then it appears in the bookmarks area. So things that I like to bookmark, obviously bank transactions, that's something that you go into a lot. Here we've shown a bookmark for T1 Personal as well. And then purchasing ProTax. ProTax has you have the ability to create some trial returns within ProTax, but I will talk about the subscription and how ProTax works if you are wanting to prepare and file tax returns within ProTax. The way that it works is that it is a subscription model. So like those subscription models that we see out there everywhere, ProTax is following in that suit. It is based on an annual subscription. So once you purchase ProTax from one of the modules, you can prepare and file unlimited tax returns with that module. You and your team, anybody in your firm, anybody in your QBOA can file unlimited returns for a full year. So there's no limits on how many you can file or who can file, things like that. There's the T1 module, T2, T3, and then the Forms Expert, as I talked about. Just released now is the ability to bundle. So you can see the modules is underlined in green there. If you click next to that, that's bundles, and then you can also do the full suite as well. At the top right, you can see the try it free button. If you Google ProTax pricing, that will take you to this screen. Ensure that you are on the Intuit on the ProTax website. There are a lot of spoofed websites out there, so just make sure when you're looking in the URL bar that you are on the actual website. Then you can look at the modules and learn more from there. Okay, somebody's asked, I already pay for Profile. Would this replace it? So ProTax and Profile are two separate programs. ProTax can absolutely replace Profile. So because Profile is Intuit's product as well, it's the desktop product. In ProTax, you have the ability to import all of your Profile tax returns from a previous year. So you can do a bulk import as well, import all those Profile tax returns, and then you can carry them forward into your current tax year. So hope that answers your question for replacing Profile. They use the same tax engine. Profile is the desktop version of the software. ProTax is the cloud-based version that incorporates work papers and your QBO files if your clients have QBO files, are living in QuickBooks Online as well. One thing to also note with ProTax, you now have the ability to file just one return. So you don't have to purchase that full subscription if you are just wanting to file one return or trialing it in that sense. You have the ability to try it free, but you don't have the ability to file it unless you purchase a return. So if you're kind of, on the fence of ProTax, you don't have to jump right in to purchase the full subscription for the year. I say it's definitely worth it, but it's nice to have that option as well. And again, note that the bundles and suite pricing. So if you want to do T1s and T2s, there is bundle pricing as well as the other bundles that will mix and match together under that area. Okay, and what years does ProTax cover? So ProTax T1, the personal tax software for ProTax, goes all the way back to 2018, and then of course all the way to 2023. I can't believe it's October, almost the end of October now. We are going to be in the 2024 tax filing season very quickly. ProTax T2 goes all the way back to 2015. I believe the CRA only accepts e-filed returns from 2017. So the 2015, 2016, you would print those out and then send them in, unless the CRA has just recently changed and gone back further. But ProTax itself has the ability to go all the way back to 2015. And Peter's asked, I'm a bookkeeper, I only have 2 clients. Is there a per user file fee as opposed to a full subscription? Yes. So I just saw your question now. That was that purchase one return at a time option that is available now, which is very handy if you don't need to purchase a full subscription. Okay, ProTax T2 getting help. So I talked about Intuit and QuickBooks and ProTax putting in a lot of resources into the help that you can get with these apps and these pieces of software. One thing to note, so on this screenshot, you see an example of what a T2 corporate tax return looks like within ProTax. You are still in the QBOA, the QuickBooks Online Accountant environment. You are just in the portal of tax, of ProTax for that. So the top help button, if you click on that when you were in ProTax, that will actually take you to more of the QuickBooks help. If you are looking for help within ProTax itself, you have to be within a tax return, and that blue bubble there at the bottom is what you want to click on. It gives you multiple options. You can have a web chat, you can have a phone call, there's access to resources through there. So once you click on that blue bubble, it will populate your different options for you. So a very easy way to access support directly in ProTax. There are also a ton of help videos out there. And these videos are generally quite short. Here I, point out that the longest one is under 12 minutes. A minute 46, 2 minutes. So very short videos that are specific to what you are looking for help. There's a QR code that I've put on here that you can point your smartphone at, and then that will take you directly to the website there. Also note, there are a ton of different webinars, recorded webinars, like today's webinars is being recorded and most likely will be posted. So just a ton of resources that you can find out there for help. And Intuit is still providing their free 15-minute onboarding call. So any ProTax customers, even if you are on a free trial, you can talk to an expert and get help with setting up ProTax. So that person that asked about profile, that would be a perfect opportunity to take your free 15-minute onboarding call. You get help set up migrating files from if it's profile or other tax software, and a ton of other items there. So that is on the ProTax website as well. You can just click book your call and then book a call with them. Okay, so importing files into ProTax. How do we go about doing that? Once you are on the main screen, there are a bunch of different options, and you may see this bubble appear in different areas. Here, obviously, it's the import returns. Here, it's showing from profile. And then here, we're looking at carrying forward returns from tax cycle, importing from Giphy, a bunch of different items. So when you are in profile and importing tax returns, for example, you can do it in bulk, like I talked about. You select all of the different returns that you want to import into ProTax. After you select those, then what you do is you match them to a client. So I talked about QBOA being a client database. You keep your clients within ProTax there, and that's where you match the tax returns. It gives a bunch of really great options, when doing that and matching the clients. You can invoice clients directly from ProTax. So very easy once you've completed a tax return, or once you've got a client signed T183, whatever stage you want to invoice your clients, very easy to do directly from ProTax as well. You can also name the return whatever you want. So your firm or your business might have certain naming conventions that you use, but ProTax leaves that open to you as to how you want to name the tax returns. And you also have the ability to rename them once you've named them. So if you've named them something and you need to change the name, you can always do that. And I'll be showing you that in a second. So once you import them, it'll say your returns are ready to go. They've now been created as new returns and will appear in your ProTax dashboard. That from there, you can do things like carry them forward to the current year. You can look at them, review them, all of that as well. And then in talking about the importing and creating new returns, we're going to be talking about creating new returns as well. On the dashboard on the right-hand side, you will see a drop-down menu next to the view the return. This is where you can rename it, like I talked about renaming it. If you've got multiple scenarios or some reason that you want to duplicate a tax return, you can do that here. This is where you also carry forward your returns year to year. Okay, so Nicole asked, will Profile Tax, the desktop version, be discontinued now that ProTax can handle? No, they serve very different purposes right now, so they are continuing to work hand in hand together. I think you'll see Profile around for definitely a while. I mean, you look at I can't say I don't work for Intuit, but you look at QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online. So as QuickBooks Online is getting more and more popular with clients, QuickBooks Desktop has been moved back, but it is still around. As far as I know, I don't know if they're doing updates, but I can kind of see Profile being kind of the same. But for now, definitely they're both still active and a lot of investment being put into both products. Okay, so Tony, this is a question that I get a lot, carrying forward a return in ProTax or in work papers. So I am actually, I've asked Intuit to develop some videos on how to carry tax returns forward and how to use work papers with ProTax. One thing that this also does bring to mind is that always reach out to ProTax support because they are always there. When you are carrying a return forward, you have the ability to look at the QuickBooks, how you're going to have that return. So is it through work papers? Are you doing a Giphy import? Are you starting a new or blank return? So that's where that option happens there. Tax return list. Okay, so this is what your dashboard looks like when you are in ProTax. In this example, we are in T2, so the corporate tax environment. And basically, that's our tax module. You can select the different tax modules along the top when you are in ProTax. Different searches that you can do and different filtering that you can do as well, as seen by bubble number 2. So you can search by client name if you've got a lot of clients. Very easy to search by client name. Again, having the cloud-based software makes it very easy to search. Whether you're in the dashboard or whether you're working on a tax return, and we'll talk about finding schedules or lines of information. If you're like, what line does this go on? And you can't remember it. Very easy to search and get information that way in the multiple search tabs. So this example is searching by client name in your dashboard. You're selecting what years you want to filter by, what status, are they in progress, are they done, et cetera, et cetera. You also have the ability to create a new T2 with that green button, create a new return. And this is where you don't have to have clients on QuickBooks Online to create a tax return for them. So it is completely separate in that sense if you want to create a brand new T2 without the client being on QuickBooks Online. I showed you a little screenshot of that view return with the drop down. That's where you carry forward, duplicate, or rename your T2 as well. Okay, so let's jump into work papers and do a little bit more of a tour directly into work papers. Okay, so I talked about the whole books to tax and those 3 tabs. You've got your books to review, work papers, and income tax. When you are in work papers itself, you have the ability there to select which fiscal tax year you are working on. In this case, it's selected tax year 2023. And obviously, being a corporation, it could have a fiscal year that differs from the calendar year. So it will show you the fiscal year beginning and end date there. In Canada, generally, we have to follow the accrual basis of accounting. In the US, they have more options to follow the cash basis of accounting. But in Canada, it's mainly the one I always remember is farmers are on the cash basis. So if you have clients who are farmers, you do have the ability to switch to the cash basis of accounting. And then bubble number 3 there, the different books to tax actions. This is where you can carry forward previous year's information. This is where you can export Giphy files. So once you are done with the work papers for the year end, you can export the Giphy file, and that is the General Index of Financial Information. That is where you can export it to ProTax. Something else that you can do, if you are just preparing the year end and maybe it's a different accountant doing the tax return or something, you have the ability to download the work papers pack, which is really great because it downloads all of the information that you've used to complete the year end for a client. Also, if you want to download it and store it somewhere else for yourself, that's another reason that you would download the work papers pack. And then the ability to lock. So it's kind of like closing the books, I guess, when you lock a work papers file when you're finished with it as well. Note again that anybody on your team who has access to your QBOA file and this client's file has the ability to collaborate within the work papers environment. And that is something that is really, really great. We're seeing that more and more with online products. You look at the Microsoft 365 suite or Google Workspace, the ability to collaborate on things like word processor files or Excel sheets or spreadsheets. That same collaboration effort is built into work papers. And then finally, I talked about the work papers tabs, those 4 tabs that you'll see there, the year-end tasks, documents, the review and adjust, and the groupings and statements. So we'll dive a little bit more into the year-end tasks. You can create any tasks. This is your task management area of work papers. You can delete tasks, you can edit them. We don't go into a lot of detail in today's webinar about it, but just a lot of things that you can do. You can have the category and the additional details for what that task will accomplish. You can also link URLs. So certain things, one that I always mention is, say 2024 CRA automobile rates. You can link that directly into your work papers. So then you can, you or your staff or your colleagues can click on that link directly and see it right in work papers there. Also status. So is it to do? Is it waiting on information or waiting on the client? Or is this a done task? So again, a full task management area. Documents is a second part of the work papers area. A lot that you can do with documents. And the huge benefit in both work papers and in ProTax itself, as well as in QBO. So if your clients, have QBO files, the ability to store documents and link it directly to that client or that tax return. What that means when it's stored that way is that you can access that information anywhere in the world. A great thing that, a great reason to do something or to put into there, or a great example, I should say, is incorporation documents. We always put client incorporation documents into here because you never know when you will need those incorporation certificates, things like that. At any point you might need them, and the ability to access them anywhere in the world at any time, as long as you have an internet connection, makes it really, really handy. Within the documents functionality, you have different folders and subfolders that you can create. And when you're working on the year end, you're going through the different items. I remember learning how to go through a balance sheet in my accountant training and making sure that you have a source document attached to every item. That is where you can do it for this in this area. So very, very easy to add folders, to add templates, and to add any kind of letters, and having those PDF letters that can be marked up as well. Okay, so as part of the year-end process, you're doing your review and adjust. You're looking at all of the different items, possibly doing adjusting entries. This is where you will look at this area for doing these kinds of tasks. A lot of different trial balance view kind of breaks it out more for you. So you see the actual trial balance view that you're maybe used to seeing in things like Caseware. A lot of different options to you as well. The printer icon, so you can print items to generate, hard copies of the trial balance. There's the gear icon. You can add and remove columns. And then really importantly, you can export to Excel. So just having that ability to export makes it really easy. And then you can manipulate things or add additional information in there. And remember, you have that documents function. So if you're doing an external Excel spreadsheet, or if you're doing Google Docs, you're PDFing, you can attach those documents again in your work papers. So remember that part. Okay, groupings and statements. So as part of the year-end process, if you are creating financial statements for your clients, you have the ability to group. If the client if their chart of accounts has 10 bank accounts, you don't want those all to appear on the financial statements. So you have the ability to group those. You can name the group. And then when you export them to Excel, that grouping and expandability remains there. So in Excel, using its functionality of expanding and collapsing rows, you have that functionality within Excel that comes directly from your work papers. Okay, wow, I gotta get talking faster. It's already 3/4 past the hour. Tax mapping on T2. I'll touch on this briefly. I talked about this a little bit before. When you have your client's QBO file and the chart of accounts, you can map each account to a Giphy code, to that general index of financial information that the CRA uses for tax returns. So in the corporate tax environment, that is your T2 and the two schedules that the CRA uses on your T2 is the Schedule 100, which is the balance sheet, and the Schedule 125, which is the income statement or the profit and loss statement. Huge time saver. It takes a little bit of time up front to map all of those items. If you have created the chart of accounts through QBO and have selected the items correctly in QBO when you are creating each account, a lot of the items will be mapped for you, so you can just review them. If not, you can always change any of the mappings. And then if there are new ones that are added that don't have mapping with them, it's very easy to map them. They will be shown at the top. So in this example, one unmapped account. And then very easy, once you click on, it doesn't show it in this screen, but on the right-hand side, there's a little pencil. That's where you can map it. You click on that, a little dialog box pops up, and you can either type the line number. I'm assuming that most of you don't remember all the line numbers. I don't. If I know, for example, that this is computer equipment, I'll start typing computer. And as soon as I start typing that, it will populate. So it makes it very easy, again, with that searchability to complete your task. Okay, starting at T2 from work papers, you can start a tax return directly from your work papers. So that is kind of the evolution into once you've done the tax mapping and you want to kind of go on and create that tax return, that is where you can do that. Did I jump over that slide? Oh yeah, the thing that I wanted to talk about is the bottom screenshot there where you see create a new return. This is where you have your different data sources. So are they a QuickBooks client work papers? Is that where the file is coming from? That's basically the Giphy mapping in the background that happens without you having to export and import. So that's where it really brings that forward. Links it to the client. You can look at the year-end start and year-end date. And that's where you can also name the tax return. You also have the ability, if you have a Giphy file created from another piece of software, you can upload that Giphy file as well. In both the QuickBooks Client Work Papers and the uploading a file from Giphy, you will see a trial balance summary. So it gives you a really good area that you can just review it quickly to see that everything is mapped correctly and how it is going to appear on those schedules 100 and 125. You also have the ability to jump back to work papers with that toggle to go to work papers. And of course, you have the ability to start a brand new blank tax return. Okay, so this just gives another example, the next step. So this is the actual tax return, what it looks like in ProTax. At the top, you've got your search bar. We go in through a lot of this in more detail in the new user experience for ProTax T2. And I've done a few of those webinars in the past, and Intuit has those stored on their YouTube site and their web pages. So you can access any of those previously recorded webinars on the basics of ProTax. But I'll just go through quickly today. You have the forms or auditor. The forms part lists all of the forms that are included in this specific tax return. To add a form, very easy to do it with the green bubble or through the go-to bar, the search. At the top, you'll see the taxable income. You will see the federal balance owing. In Alberta, for example, there's an AT1 return that is part of the corporate tax return. You will see the Alberta balance owing or refund, and then the e-file status, eligible or not eligible. And then again, you have this area where you can attach documents. I always like to attach the financial statements to the tax return so that you can, if you ever need to look back and forth, you can make sure that they jive, signed T183s, things like that. We'll also talk about Intuit Sign today too. So attaching any of those documents that you just want to have stored on hand in a safe and secure environment that links directly to the tax return. At the top right, you see that request signature. We will be talking about that as part of Intuit Sign as well. Okay, so some other things that go along with ProTax T2. Engagement letters and consent forms, always a good idea to get an engagement letter with your client before you start the work. It just adds clarity into what tasks you're going to be doing and what the client can expect from you. If you are in the tax return, you can use a quick bar. You can type in compilation engagement letter. You can add the engagement letter. There are a lot of different templates for different items that are built directly into ProTax. And then we will talk about getting those engagement letters signed through PDF that are password protected as well. Like consent forms, business consent forms, and things like that. Okay, so if you are looking at a consent form, for example, in that search bar, you type business consent. This is where you can print off that business consent form for your client to sign. And then the process has changed a little bit with the CRA, so it's a lot more difficult to obtain that business consent from a client. The easiest thing to do is you can submit the consent form. In the background, CRA will be waiting to hear from the client for that business consent. So what we tell all of our clients is ensure that this is what we tell all of our clients, to ensure that they have a CRA My Business account. Once they have that, it is very easy for them to give you authorization. And you want to have them do that. In that case, you don't necessarily need the business consent form. I don't believe, don't quote me on it, because it's the client initiating that through their My Business portal. And then you have access to all of your clients' data that the CRA has online. Huge, huge time saver. Okay, some other things with ProTax. Obviously, I talked about some mandatory schedules that are included, the Schedule 100 and 125, the balance sheet and profit and loss statement. Some other things like Schedule 8, all the capital cost allowance. As you know, in accounting, we look at depreciation and amortization. In the tax world, it's CCA, or capital cost allowance. The S8 supplementary form, the Schedule 8 supplement, is an awesome form that's included in ProTax that you can use to reconcile your net book value on your financials with your Schedule 8 undepreciated capital cost. So a really important form for reconciling, makes it very easy there. And then just more information on it appearing on Schedule 1, because you want to add back that amortization of your accounting related tangible assets, and then deducting that capital cost allowance. All of that is handled through ProTax as well. Here we have the different, here we've got Schedule 50, so your shareholder information that you want to ensure is entered, and then the Schedule 141, some questions that you need to answer. And we'll talk about the ProTax Auditor that is built into ProTax Auditor in a bit. It goes through things like the Schedule 141, etc., to highlight areas that need attention. Here, of course, dividends, working with any kind of dividends with clients as well. Something else to note about ProTax are the colors of the cells. So if you have a cell that has a purple bar on the right-hand side, that is a cell that has been carried forward from a previous tax return. If it's red, that means, well, actually, I'll say if it's blue, that is a calculation done by that ProTax engine. If it is red, it means that that's a calculation that has been overridden. So there may be certain circumstances or instances that you need to overwrite cells. Once you have a cell that's overridden, if you want to revert to the actual calculated cell, you can delete the overridden cell by clearing the contents of it and then tabbing out. In the auditor, you also have the ability to click on the little trash can to delete that override as well. One other thing that I want to mention is the go-to source. So very, very handy area with a little arrow. So if you see a blue cell that has a calculation, it's calculated from somewhere. You're thinking like, oh, I want to jump quickly to where that calculation happened so that I can see that. You click on the little blue up arrow, go to source. And then once you are at that source document, then you can jump back and toggle back very quickly to where you came from. Touching very briefly on any clients that are not on QuickBooks Online. Again, they don't have to be. You can create a brand new tax return for them from the Create a New Return. And you can also import the Giphy or start a blank tax return. Here's where you'll want to create the client in your client database or link it if you already have it created, and then just add the different items there. And this again shows that trial balance summary or that data import summary. Okay, autofill my return. I talked a little bit about having access to your client's information. With that, you want to have a rep ID. So represent a client. You can go directly to the CRA's website, canada.ca, or Google that. Make sure you are on the canada.ca website for that. Once you get authorization, once you become a rep, you get a rep ID, and then you can use that to have clients authorize you on both their personal side or their business side as well, so that you can obtain that information from the CRA. Where it goes a step further, and there's a huge time-saving thing in ProTax, both T1 and T2, is then you can use that to autofill the return. So a lot of items that come through that can be auto-filled based on what the CRA has. And basically just saves you manually typing in and having to manually input those items. So huge time saver. Works a little bit differently in the T1 and the T2 modules. I will be teaching the T1 modules in November, so look for those webinars coming up. And we'll be going through the autofill my return that way. Obviously a few differences in the corporate environment. You have a fiscal year end, which isn't necessarily the calendar year end. So other things that pop up on that. Just note these three screens. First, you go to the CRAs directly through ProTax. It takes you to the CRA site to say, okay, this is the business number we're working on, connects them, and then you have the ability to choose what you want to import. Also with that ability, it'll show what the CRA has on that client and then what your return has. So something here that's shown that's really a handy thing, shows what the CRA has as the client's address versus what you have on the return, shows you that it's a difference, and then how are you going to handle that difference. You also have the ability to toggle only the items that are different from what you have on the return versus the CRA, or you can look at everything. Okay, and then wrapping it up, I'm going to talk about the auditor now. I mentioned it a couple times. We had seen the forms side of our ProTax T2. That listed all the forms. When you click on the auditor, then it lists any items that come to the attention that are possibly needing attention spent. Things that are maybe entered incorrectly, things that look wrong. This is the power of the Intuit tax engine through the auditor. The auditor lists the different issues, the different warn-offs. If you've signed off by clicking that little arrow in that circle, it'll turn into a color and then move into the sign-offs area. So you can always go and revisit those. And then this is where you can also see all those cells that are overridden if you want to get rid of those overrides here as well. Okay, wrapping it up. Printing tax return, very important. If you want to share that information with your client, you can also print different schedules or different areas of the tax return. One thing that's really great with ProTax is that when you go to print stuff to PDF, it has a toggle that will automatically allow you to add a password to that PDF. Very, very important. Anytime you are sending sensitive information, especially client information that could be confidential, you want to ensure that it is password protected because email can be intercepted. Email is a very insecure way of sending information. QuickBooks Online, if you have a chance and your client has a QuickBooks Online, note that you can also send requests to your clients directly through QuickBooks Online, through their QuickBooks Online account or file. That's where you can communicate with your client directly in the secure environment of QuickBooks as well. Okay, so Intuit Sign. What is Intuit Sign? It is something that allows you to have your clients electronically sign forms within ProTax. It was released towards the end of 2023, so almost a year old now. It, again, allows forms to be electronically signed, works with ProTax T1 and T2. Really important to note that it's CRA compliant. So aside from items that are like pieces of software out there like DocuSign, things like that, ProTax and Intuit Sign are geared specifically to be CRA compliant. And another huge benefit is they are included at no additional cost. So having those clients electronically sign those forms for you in a secure environment at no additional cost is a huge benefit. And I mentioned that request signature. When you are on a form in a ProTax file, you will have the ability, you will see that request signature if there is the ability to electronically sign that form. You can select up to 5 documents to be signed by a client at once. This shows the workflow. So at the top, you'll see documents, recipients, reminders, and review and send when you are requesting that e-signature. Documents first, which ones you're going to be requesting, then the recipients. all the recipient information. Most of it pre-populates from ProTax. So you have the ability to override that if you need to. And you also have the ability to customize the email message that will go out. Huge, huge advantage and benefit is sending reminders automatically to your clients. So if they haven't signed the documents that you need them to sign, you can have automatic reminders go out at whatever frequency that you choose. And then finally, the review and send. It kind of gives you the overview of what's going to happen. If you click on that preview e-signature email, you will see what the email looks like, a copy of the email before you're sending it, if you want to preview it. And just note that with the tax modules, those 4 modules, you should now see the e-signature at the top as well. This is your dashboard for your e-signatures. So remember, if you're wanting your clients to sign a tax form, you have to be in the tax return itself, and that's where you request the e-signature. If you are looking to see what the status is on all of the e-signatures, this is where you go. This is the dashboard for e-signatures, and I'll take you to that in a second. Just want to note though, if you do not see that there, you can click on the tax settings button within ProTax. This is where all of your tax settings lie. This is your e-filing. This is where your letters, your letter templates, options, I'll talk about that. And then you might see that Intuit Sign in the ProTax labs. So these are items that are in beta. Intuit Sign is out of beta now, but it may possibly appear for you there. If it does, that's where you have to toggle that on. And then once you click on that e-signature, this is the dashboard that you will see. You'll see if an authentication has failed on a client side, if something has been sent, if it's been signed, if it's been completed, you have the ability to download the e-signature, all of that directly in the dashboard. Okay, and I'm a little bit over time. I know I want to jump to any questions. I've been answering some questions throughout, so I don't see any other questions in the panel right now. E-filing tax returns, very important to become registered as an e-filer. Very easy to do on the CRA's website. Again, Google it or go to canada.ca. Make sure you are on that CRA's website. You can become an e-filer. The sign-up process is pretty simple. And then you enter that information into ProTax so that you have the ability to e-file within ProTax. Just note that it can take this slide says 30 days. It can take 30 to 60 days to get approved as an e-filer. You also have to do a yearly renewal. This is pulled from the CRA's website. That yearly renewal reminder comes out toward the end of October. I don't know if any of you have seen that come out yet. Do that early before the end of the year so that you can get approved for the upcoming year, because it does take 30 to 60 days to happen. Within ProTax itself, when you are in the tax return, you will see the e-file bubble at the top right, and that's where you can file the tax return. In this case, the T2 federal one in Alberta, you will see the ability to file the Alberta tax return as well, and province dependent. A couple other things to mention. I talked about the auditor, the live auditor toggle. The difference with that having toggled on or off is whether or not when you enter information into a cell, if it is something that the auditor flags as something that might be erroneous or something that needs attention to, it will highlight it in orange so that you can quickly change it and pay attention to it directly there. The live auditor in quick mode used to appear on the main screen like we see here, but now it appears in that tax settings area. So let me see if I can jump back to that screen. Yeah, that was the tax settings window there, but I wanted to find the one here. That is in that options area. So if you see at the top, that options, that's where you will find those 2 options now live. Okay, so just clicking through. Quick mode we talk about in the in the intro to ProTax. So visit any of those webinars for that. Documents, just want to highlight super quick again, the ability to attach documents directly to a tax return. Note that those documents are not necessarily sent to the CRA. So anything that you're attaching isn't sent to the CRA unless it's under the for CRA submission and then submitted area. So multiple areas that you can attach documents. You can attach it directly in ProTax. Again, the QBO, so that's those client requests that you create with documents. You might see them there. In work papers, when you're working on the year-end file, you'll see what's stored there. And then the for CRA submission, that's part of, I'll talk about it in a second. Very easy to upload documents. You can drag or you can search your computer for them. Now the CRA submission, that is for things that relate to the foreign reporting requirements management system, the FRRMS. So those are things like your T1134s, 1135s. You have the ability to send those directly to the CRA through the ProTax portal there. And then again, in ProTax resources, frequently asked questions. We talked about the what's new section as well. And I'm going to try and bring that up just super quick for you so you can see community and support, and then events and webinars. There are events and webinars coming out all of the time. So really good idea to look at those. And obviously you found this webinar. So a great place to look at those. In addition to that, as you can see now in the Pro Advisor tab, just above the ProTax, you'll see the trainings tab. I always like to mention this one because it gives a lot of different training resources. This is where you can become certified. The training library. So if you're looking at books to tax, the different webinars that are being presented, some of them are on demand, some of them are live. So a great area that you can find directly through the Pro Advisor training portal. And again, it's absolutely free to be able to access it through there. I'm just going to take I don't see any questions coming up. So if anybody has any questions, further questions, feel free to list them in the Q&A area. I'm going to take the next couple of minutes while we're going through to take you through work papers if I don't see any questions. So jumping into work papers, the way you jump into it is you go to that client's QBO file. So the client has to be on QBO to access the work papers area. And again, that was through the drop down. As I selected here, I selected Craig's Landscaping. So now note that this has changed and we are in the client's file. That's when you will see the books to tax appear. If we are going into, say, the work papers area, we click on that. And that's where you have your year-end adjust and the groupings and statements. If you make changes or if there are changes made when you're working on the year end, you'll see items like this. I want to take you through to the income tax tab as well. And here's where you select the tax mapping. You look at the year, the accrual basis, you know what client you're working on. Here is where you toggle between self-employed and a corporation. This is where it will show you the different unmapped accounts. Very easy. Oh, I said previously it's a pencil, but it's an assigned task line. If you are changing what line it's going to be assigned to, that's where the pencil appears. Otherwise, you can assign the tax line there, and you can start typing different items, and they will automatically come up, and then you can select from there. So very easy to do that. What else? So right from there, that's where we can use our books to tax options or actions. That's where you can download, you can export CSV files. That's where you can also start returns directly in ProTax. So this is a sample file. I don't think it's enabled for ProTax yet, but I'll show you how you just jump into ProTax directly from work papers. Okay, so we don't have access to this feature because this is a sample file, but this is what you would see when you are jumping directly from your client's work papers. It shows that this is Craig's Landscaping, the tax year. You can name the return, and here's all of your mapping. All right, so, oh, actually, one other thing that I'll show you before we leave. I'm going to go into ProTax. I know we don't have access to it. But this is the tax settings area that I was talking about that gives all the different items, the ProTax labs, all of that. And then the what's new section. So that's where you can click on to find the latest release notes. And it's continuing, like the last one was March. As we jump into another tax season, we will see these populate more and more frequently. A lot of great resources that you can access through here. All the different accounting functions, starting business, running a business, growing, free tools that are part of the QuickBooks blog as well. So that is it. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. Hopefully, I answered all of your questions, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of today's webinar. The next T1 webinars will be in November, and look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks again. My name is Jason Hasty, and take care. See you around. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.